James Bond aficionados have argued about Roger Moore's and Sean Connery's respective legacies for decades. The two legends' differing depictions and subsequent silence contributed to the long-running rumors of animosity, jealousy, and professional strife. However, Sean Connery chose to end his quiet when he was 89 years old. His revelations regarding Roger Moore stunned many and validated long-held beliefs. His remarks were unexpected, direct, and disturbing all at once. Connery finally let the world see his successor's true colors for the first time. Not only will what you discover surprise you, but it will also alter your perception of these two characters. Pre-retirement journey of Sean Connery. Many have argued over the best roles played by the most famous James Bond actors for many years. For years, speculation about animosity, jealousy, and professional strife between Roger Moore and Sean Connery circulated, driven by the two giants' differing representations of one another and their relative quiet on the subject. However, Sean Connery chose to end his quiet when he was 89 years old. Some were astonished, some were moved, and long-held preconceptions were put to rest by what he revealed about Roger Moore. His remarks were unexpected, understated, and revealing. Connery has let the world in on his real feelings about his replacement. The legend of Sean Connery predates both tuxedos and espionage technology. He came from humble beginnings. Thomas Sean Connery was born on August 25, 1930, in Edinburgh, Scotland. Born to a factory worker father and a cleaning woman mother, Sean Connery's work ethic influenced his behavior and acting style. He worked odd jobs like milk delivery and lifeguarding after dropping out of school when he was young. But it was during his tenure from 1946 to 1949 in the Royal Navy that he was first exposed to a regimented and organized society. A stomach ulcer, among other physical issues, forced him to leave the military early, ending his military career prematurely. Connery started to look for other opportunities when his stint in the Navy ended. He showed off his body and self-assurance in 1953 when he entered the Mr. Universe pageant. The competition opened doors, even though he didn't win. Soon after, Connery began to gravitate toward acting, and he began to get modeling jobs. He started out in bit parts, honing his skills that would eventually make him a household name around the world. In the late 1950s, he began landing jobs in British films and TV shows thanks to his charisma and good looks. Connery had a string of successful film roles from 1957 to 1961, including Hell Drivers, Darby Ogle, and The Little People, which helped propel him to stardom. Then came the part that would alter the course of events. The first official film version of Ian Fleming's novels, Dr. No, which was released in 1962, starred Sean Connery as James Bond. Even Fleming himself had reservations about Connery's acting chops at the outset, but the detractors were soon hushed by his performance. Defined James Bond for decades to come, he introduced a mix of calm sophistication and sheer ferocity to the role. With the smash hit of the film, Sean Connery shot to stardom and became a household name all over the world. With a series of James Bond films between 1963 and 1967, Sean Connery cemented his place in popular culture. You Only Live Twice, Thunderball, Goldfinger, and From Russia with Love. The more films he directed, the more his Bond became ingrained in popular culture. His physical charisma, quick wit, and magnetic presence won over audiences worldwide. However, Connery started to feel the pressure as the role grew more demanding and the popularity intensified. He longed to break free of the 007 related typecasting and explore a wider range of personalities. In 1971, Connery made a triumphant return for Diamonds Are Forever, despite his absence. Reactions to the reappearance were varied. When he returned, some were happy to see him, while others were baffled. But the picture did well at the box office, and Sean Connery showed he could still pull off the Bond role. In 1983, over a decade after the first film, an unofficial Bond feature that existed independently of the main series narrative, Never Say Never Again, he returned to the character. Even though it didn't do as well at the box office as his other entries, it was the last nostalgic outing in the character that had made his career. On the other hand, Connery was a multi-talented actor. In the years that followed, he continued to show how versatile an actor he was. He played the role of Irish-American police officer Jim Malone in the 1987 film The Untouchables. He received critical praise for the role, which led to his Oscar win for Best Supporting Actor. For my career, it was a watershed moment, demonstrating that Connery's abilities went much beyond his Bond character. His timeless allure was emphasized by his 1989 People magazine title of Sexiest Man Alive, which he received at the age of 59. His breakout role as Marco Ramos, captain of the Soviet submarine, in the film The Hunt for Red October came in the 1990s, along with a string of other significant appearances. His performance successfully portrayed the character's mix of might and frailty, making him imposing yet relatable. As he continued to amass an impressive filmography, Connery played a wide range of characters, from sage teachers to daring explorers. He received the esteemed BAFTA Fellowship in 1996, a testament to his impact on the worlds of film and drama, in acknowledgement of his career achievements. Not only that, but the praise continued. Sean Connery was knighted in 2000 by Queen Elizabeth II for his contributions to the film and theater industries, becoming Sir Sean Connery. In addition to being a personal achievement, Connery's knighthood was a source of national pride for Scotland, a country that adored him. It was an appropriate farewell to a guy who had captivated audiences all across the globe for decades. But by 2003, things had shifted in Connery's connection with Hollywood. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was his last picture in which he starred. After becoming disillusioned with the industry's backstage politics and decision-making, Sean Connery decided to call it quits. Key factors for his decision included creative conflicts and industry turmoil. He had built his career on honesty and commitment to his work, so to just walk away was a statement. The legacy he left behind was one of unwavering resolve, rather than capitulation. Controversial topics, including marital violence, Sean's tax exile, and other issues. The impact of Sean Connery on film is indisputable. Beginning his career in Edinburgh, Connery rose to stardom as the first James Bond and went on to star in other landmark roles, receive numerous accolades, and gain widespread renown. In addition to leaving an indelible impression on cinema around the world, he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II and received an Oscar. After decades of achievement, he retired in 2003, bringing an end to an era. Still, Connery's private opinions, decisions, and scandals were just as much talked about, examined, and remembered as his contributions to cinema. As he became older, people started paying greater attention to both his on-screen achievements and the more complex and, at times, disturbing parts of his off-screen existence. His remarks regarding violence against women were the source of one of the most hurtful and enduring scandals involving Sean Connery. Connery famously said in an interview with Playboy in 1965, the comment was met with criticism right away, despite the fact that his film career's meteoric rise first obscured it. After all these years, in an interview with Barbara Walters in 1987, Sean Connery restated his earlier remark, saying that he still thought it was acceptable in some situations. Many people were outraged by his comments, which shocked the audience. Connery never apologized or retracted completely, even if he did try to withdraw those remarks later on, saying they were taken out of context. Much of the criticism and admiration he received throughout his life was based on those controversial comments, and the debate never really went away. Not only did Connery have troubled ideas on women, but he also had growing friction inside the James Bond brand, which brought him fame. Despite widespread acclaim for him as the undisputed 007, tensions rose between him, Ian Productions, and producer Albert R. Broccoli. Despite the enormous earnings from the Bond flicks, Sean Connery believed he was underpaid and underappreciated. He was very vocal about his disapproval of the studio's treatment of him, both artistically and monetarily. He once went on record saying that he despised James Bond for limiting his creative freedom and leading to typecasting. His problems with the series were so bad that he quit playing the part after 1967's You Only Live Twice. Connery continued to openly discuss the business disagreements and a lack of authority he had while working within the Bond machine. Even though he made a return for 1971's Diamonds Are Forever and starred in 1983's Never Say Never Again, the unofficial Bond film. What ought to have been one of the most lauded partnerships in cinematic history was overshadowed by this troubled relationship. The critics also pointed to Connery's financial choices. The public's interest in his tax and housing decisions increased in tandem with his career. After leaving the Bahamas, Sean Connery settled in Spain. Though he gave explanations related to his lifestyle and personal matters, many assumed that financial considerations were driving the change. As Connery became an outspoken advocate for Scottish independence, these doubts intensified. He passionately advocated for Scotland's right to self-governance and gave substantial amounts to the Scottish National Party, SNP. Many Scottish nationalists rallied behind him because of his advocacy, but his detractors were eager to point out the inconsistency. It had been years since Connery had set foot in Scotland. He supposedly avoided paying his fair share of taxes by relocating to tax havens, all while boasting about how great his country was. Scots in politics and the media branded him a hypocrite for betraying the cause he professed to defend. The incident added another dimension to the complex public perception of Sean Connery, but the criticism didn't seem to sway his opinion. The private accusations made by his ex-wife, the actress Diane Silento, were much more hurtful. According to Silento's account, Connery was physically and emotionally abusive to her during their marriage. She further muddied Connery's already tumultuous public image by describing a controlling and frightening relationship. Many people believed Silento more after hearing Connery's remarks on violence toward women, even though he disputed the accusations. A lot of people were really disturbed by the picture that was presented by the combination of personal testimony and previous public comments. Others maintained that the actor's private life and his public accomplishments were inseparable, and this was especially true when the conduct and issue was consistent with Connery's public remarks. Another factor adding to Connery's contentious reputation was his involvement in politics. His outspoken backing of Scottish independence garnered attention from all corners of the globe, not only the UK. He recognized the uprising as the Scottish people's justifiable demand for independence. But his offshore accounts were the target of criticism once again. Many others doubted his influence because they thought a person who had been abroad for a long time and benefited from tax exile shouldn't have such a strong say in the political course of a nation where he no longer paid taxes. His stance sparked heated discussions in Scottish independence circles and the media on the impact of his support. It seems like this was a very personal issue for Connery, founded on a deep sense of national pride. But many of his detractors saw it as just another instance of the gap between his rhetoric and his behavior. Roger Moore came into this world in Stockwell, London, England, on October 14, 1927. His life story continues beyond the 007 film. Moore has always had a thing for stage presence and public speaking, an event that would shape his professional trajectory. During the last years of World War II, from 1945 to 1946, Moore enlisted in the Royal Army Service Corps to serve his nation. After a while, he was sent to the Combined Services Entertainment Unit to boost the morale of the British troops by providing them with entertainment. During this time, he not only learned the importance of discipline and duty, but he also gained valuable experience performing in front of an audience, whether in a more conventional or unconventional venue. The confidence and charisma he exhibited in his acting roles later in life were firmly established by his time in the military. Roger Moore first dabbled with the difficult world of movies and TV in the 50s. He began his career with cameos in both American and British films, such as Interrupted Melody and The Last Time I Saw Paris, among others. Despite the small size of these assignments, they contributed to his credibility and professional expertise. Moore's poise and confidence shone through in his roles as sophisticated and self-assured individuals. In this decade, he became known for his charisma and professionalism, traits that would be crucial to his later, most famous parts. When Moore was cast as Simon Templar in the 1958 television series The Saint, it marked a huge turning point in his career. This part, which he played until 1969, made him famous all over the world. Moore portrayed gentle adventurer Simon Templar with the same charm and charisma that would later characterize his James Bond roles. By starring in The Saint, Moore was able to show off his acting chops and prove that he could sustain a series for a long time, winning over viewers who became devoted fans. The clever humor and dashing good looks of the characters became instantly recognizable as Moore himself, which increased his popularity in the UK and beyond. Roger Moore's 1973 casting as James Bond solidified his place in cinematic history. Seen in his first film role as the legendary agent in Live and Let Die, succeeding Sean Connery. The Bond series and Moore both underwent major changes as a result of this. Moore went toward a more elegant and comedic interpretation of 007, in contrast to Sean Connery's rough intensity. The picture did well at the box office, and Moore's portrayal of James Bond appealed to a new demographic that admired his composed personality. This depiction established the tone for his lengthy tenure in the role, imbuing the character with a carefree and global vibe. 6 further films starring Roger Moore as James Bond were released between 1974 and 1985. The Man with the Golden Gun, 1974, The Spy Who Loved Me, 1977, and Moonraker, 1979, were among these. Restricted to Your Permission, 1981. October, 1983. And 1985's A View to a Kill. New adventures and perils awaited Bond in each installment, providing ample opportunity to delve further into his multifaceted character. A lot of people think that The Spy Who Loved Me was the best Bond film because it had such a great mix of romance, action, and suspense. Moonraker, on the other hand, steered the series in a more fantastical path, with an emphasis on space locations and extraordinary effects. Many viewers loved Moore's performance, even though the film's plot points were sometimes criticized. The era's Bond films were marked by his consistency, comedy, and polish. At the age of 58, Roger Moore withdrew from playing James Bond by 1985. He had played the role for the longest duration of any performer at that time. The franchise entered a new era with his departure. Moore left an indelible mark as James Bond. Although he wasn't the first to portray the character, he gave it his all. For 7 films, he played the part with an identifiable charisma that set him apart from his contemporaries. Many still hold Moore in high esteem as the most beloved actor to portray the iconic secret agent, long after he left the role. Moore shifted his focus to humanitarian activities after stepping down from the Bond series. He became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador in 1991. Audrey Hepburn, an actor friend of his, had previously played a similar part, and her work served as an inspiration for this decision. Moore campaigned tirelessly for the rights of children and their well-being around the world while serving as an ambassador for UNICEF. He traveled to nations hit hard by poverty and war, utilizing his celebrity to bring attention to the cause and collect donations. His dedication to the cause showcased a more serious and caring side, which brought him admiration from sectors other than entertainment. Even Moore said on multiple occasions that his humanitarian efforts had more purpose than his acting career. For his charitable work, Queen Elizabeth II knighted Roger Moore in 2003. A momentous occasion in his life, this distinction recognized not just his accomplishments in film, but also his commitment to serving others. A combination of fame and public service, the knighthood was a symbol of national appreciation of his many accomplishments. Moore was famous for playing imaginary heroes, yet she had shown real dedication to matters that arise in the actual world. He maintained the esteem he had gained from people of all ages and professions via his philanthropic endeavors, even in his twilight years. My Word is My Bond, Moore's autobiography, was published in 2008, adding another layer to his legacy. The book was an honest look at his life, work, and thoughts, a glimpse inside his life as James Bond. His connections in Hollywood and his work with nonprofits were all revealed to readers. A clever nod to his iconic spy role perfectly captured his wit and self-awareness in its title. In his autobiography, Moore shared his story in his own words, describing the highs and lows of his journey with candor and elegance. Positive reviews for the book helped solidify public perception of him as an amiable and considerate person. Scandals and Regrets featured Roger Moore. Roger Moore's legacy, like that of many famous people, contained problems and personal complications, despite the worldwide adoration for his charisma and endurance as James Bond. Over the years, Moore became embroiled in discussions that mirrored larger cultural problems as the public discourse changed to focus on social responsibility and representation. Roger Moore was the target of intense criticism in 2015 after making remarks on the possible future casting of James Bond in an interview with the French publication Paris Match. The idea of a black actor, like Idris Elba, stepping into the legendary part was much discussed back then. Many readers and commenters found Moore's remark, "Bond should be English," to be racially offensive. Some people were angry because they thought Moore was holding on to racist or outmoded ideas about British identity because of the comment. On the other hand, Moore wasted no time defending himself. Subsequently, he made it clear that he had not meant to make a racist remark and that his remarks had been twisted or misinterpreted. Moore claims that he was not making a racial statement when he said that his intention was to maintain the classic depiction of Bond as an archetype that is uniquely British. Nonetheless, the episode remained, casting doubt on how famous individuals adapt to new eras and casting a contentious shadow over his latter years in the spotlight. Roger Moore's private life was also the subject of much investigation, even outside of his talks with the media. Despite Moore's reputation as a gentleman, his personal connections were more difficult than that. He wed 4 times, and each time his relationships were fraught with drama and scrutiny from the public eye. He wed Luisa Mattioli for the 3rd time, but their marriage ended in divorce due to claims of emotional adultery. Reportedly, Mattioli told Moore that she felt betrayed when he left her for his 4th wife, Christina Thulstrup, and that Moore had engaged in emotional relationships during their marriage. The divorce was widely reported and generated interest due to Moore's fame and the fact that it exposed a less perfect and more human side of the actor, who had previously portrayed charming and idealized roles on television. Dorothy Squire was a famous Welsh singer who Moore had previously wed. As with that relationship, it ended in turmoil. The breakup of the pair was heavily reported in British media, and Squires claimed that Moore had left her. Moore recounted in his autobiography that Squires had once smacked him with a guitar during a quarrel and talked about the emotional toll the marriage had on him. But he was very forthright about not retaliating and staying away from making any explicit accusations of abuse. Moore was never officially or verifiably accused of domestic violence by Squires or any of his other lovers, despite the fact that rumors and suspicion surrounding their relationship for years. But these divorces were public and the media covered them extensively, which contrasted with Moore's carefully constructed public image and revealed a more nuanced side of his character. Endured criticism throughout his illustrious career, especially as James Bond grew older on-screen. Some felt the portrayal had strayed too far from the grim, serious tone of Ian Fleming's original character, while others enjoyed the lighter tone he brought to the franchise. Moore was 58 years old when he starred in 1985's A View to a Kill, and many began to wonder whether his ongoing casting was realistic. Moore later acknowledged that he could have overstayed his welcome, a moment of self-awareness that won him over some. An admission that demonstrated both his humor and the widening gap between his on-screen age and that of his character served to emphasize his sense of humor in interviews when he joked about being older than the mother of his on-screen love interest. His overall impact on the Bond franchise was unaffected by this criticism of his later performances, but it did spark a discussion over the aging of action heroes and the Hollywood pressure on performers to keep a youthful image. Moore showed that he understood the demands of the profession and his own limits by gracefully handling the criticism, recognized the shifting terrain, and using comedy to redirect some of the more scathing criticism rather than obstinately maintain his part. Roger Moore's brief fight with cancer ended with his passing in Switzerland on May 23, 2017. His age was 89 years. For many who love the old James Bond movies and TV shows, his death was the end of an era. Despite Moore's long-ago retirement from acting, his autobiography, humanitarian efforts with UNICEF, and appearances in interviews and retrospectives kept him prominent in popular culture. His lengthy career and his later humanitarian endeavors provided a complex picture of a man who, like other icons, was both adored and troubled, even when parts of his private and public life were shrouded in controversy or criticism. The authenticity of Roger Moore's Bond was exposed by Sean Connery. After a lifetime of silence, Sean Connery broke his silence publicly on Roger Moore when he was 89 years old. Fans have been hoping for decades for this rare moment of honesty, and it finally came. Instead of being a scathing indictment, Connery's remarks served as a direct comparison between the two men who had a hand in shaping one of the most iconic characters in cinematic history. Moore died in 2017, and Connery was asked, in an interview that came out soon after, to comment on how they had portrayed James Bond, a question he had avoided answering honestly for a long time. Nevertheless, he spared no expense this time. In his portrayal of James Bond, Sean Connery maintained an authoritative, credible, and, one can only hope, all-encompassing position and effect. It is entirely feasible for anything to occur. From what I can tell, Roger went in a different way. In a way, he's making fun of the character. At the expense of realism and credibility, you would pursue comedy for its own sake. That, in my opinion, is the main distinction. Although pointed, these comments did not aim to undermine anyone in particular. Rather, they serve to highlight the unique strengths of each actor's Bond character. While Sean Connery's Bond reflected the Cold War era's realism and espionage, Moore's Bond swung into a lighter, funnier realm that reflected the cultural changes of the 70s and 80s. When the interviewer brought up Moore's enormous popularity with viewers, particularly women, the discussion took an even more illuminating turn. "Well, you can't fight intelligence," Connery said while laughing. He's never one to back down from a caustic remark. Underneath the humorous veneer, there was a subliminal reference to Moore's talent for striking a chord with audiences through his unique perspective. Moore possessed a charming, charismatic personality, which Connery acknowledged. Thanks for watching.